Hi guys, and welcome back. And today we get on with the building of the Diorama base for the Panther Buddy build dio that I'm doing with Steve Mottram. So I always start off the same way, which is making the frame. And you've seen me do this a few times, so I'm not going to dwell on it for any length of time. I use Tasmanian oak moulding and my new little Proxon miter saw, which makes everything very easy. So I glue all that up together and use that plastic core flute stuff for the base, which you've seen me use before as well. Incredibly strong, but very, very light and very easy to work with. I want a little bit of height on this dio. I want them to be pulled up in a bit of an upslope, just building up the base with some foam packing material. So I think I've said before, everyone who knows me knows that I like to collect the large flat sheets of packing foam that come with TVs or fridges. So I've got a nice little collection in the garage. And then for those parts that have got a bit of height, I just tidy up the edges by cutting some very thin balsa wood to extend the edge of the actual wooden base. And then I sprayed it all just to get it nice and dark. And I've seen this effect happen before when you use like a lacquer based spray, and it sort of causes the foam to melt a little bit. So I wanted to see if that would happen again for a start and what sort of effect it gave. At the end of the day, it was really pointless because I was going to put clay over the top of it anyway, but I was more curious than anything else to see if it might have a use outside of this specific build. So there it is, just clamped up while it's all drying, and once it was dry, then removed the clamps and just splashed on some stain, the same stain as is on the Tasmanian oak base, just to bring it all together. So just using stock standard DAS white clay, with a little bit of PVA glue spread around on the foam just to help it all bind together. This is always really easy to work with and quite enjoyable to see the contours starting to develop, and then as the story sort of grows in my mind, what I really want the terrain to look like. It's sort of vaguely there in my head, but putting it all down starts to help get that finalised and starting to look fairly much like how I want it to look. So my broad vision for this dio is that the tanks are at rest just on a little bit of an upslope. It's been raining, but it's they've moved in overnight, so the track is quite churned up with tank track marks. It's sort of dawn when the scene's being taken, and there's just a light fall of snow, so the water on the ground is sort of iced up and turned into ice. There'll be a little bit of ice on the tanks, and then just a very gentle powdering of snow. So wanted to get the track marks in the clay, and just lots of them, so it showed there'd been lots of traffic through the area the evening before, and the tanks were just sort of set up in position to roll the next day. Another bonus to having the metal tracks is they work really well in making the imprints on the clay. And the more observant of you might notice that I changed my mind halfway through, just which direction I wanted the tanks to be facing, hence the additional impressions being made on the clay in the opposite direction. Now these little tufts of grass weren't originally even in my thinking, but just this is coincidence and modelling, I guess, that morning when I was having a shave, this sort of set of bristles fell out of my shaving brush, and I looked at them and I thought, they might have a use. So I just wanted to do a little bit of a test with them and whack them in the corner here to see how they come out. So it's more an experiment than anything else, but you don't want to throw anything away, especially when the gods deliver it into your hand while you're having a shave. Now, I know none of my subscribers would ever suffer from this, gentlemen, of course, would we? But rather unusually, I had a little bit of shrinkage with the DAS clay, and this is the first time that's happened. So I'm not sure if the room was too hot and it dried too quickly. I'm really not sure, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, a little bit of shrinkage that just was easily fixed with the application of some more DAS into the gaps. I tried to use some wood filler initially. I've got a little bit of footage of that, but it was just too tacky and too much messing around. The DAS was just easier to use in the finish. And then finally on with the painting, and I just use these really cheap acrylics to get the very first base coat down. Mix them together, don't really care what colour it is. And I wanted it nice and thick here because I wanted to get some of the sort of water lines. Didn't mask the edges, as you can see, so a little bit of clean up there, but it wasn't a catastrophe. And then it was just time to have a bit of an airbrush session, and you can see a collection of different Vallejo browns and dark greens and even a little bit of bronze in there at one stage. And I really don't have a science to this. I just chuck a whole bunch of different browns together. Have a vague idea that I want the low places to be dark and the high places to be lighter. And that's about as much thought as I put into it, and just spray around, as you can see. Not too fussy, and I think the end result looks pretty good. And here I've just gone back over with the darkest brown of the ones that I have, just through the track marks mainly, to make sure the low points of those are nice and dark. And in the spirit of true confessions, I really cocked up that long grass that I put in, because I got the base coat paint all over it and forgot I meant to go back and wash it out with some water, and then promptly forgot all about it. So not quite sure how I will address that moving forward, but I'll think of something. And then finally, and I'm not going to do much more on the base in this video than what I'm doing right now, it was just to get a really good gloss coat down, because I want it to look all wet and shiny. It's just the Vallejo acrylic gloss, but I always find that comes out quite nicely. Yeah, a bit of time on that, and starting to take shape. And then finally, the last thing I decided to do, because I just wanted to sort of map the low-lying areas, was to just start dripping on the Vallejo gloss acrylic, filling all the low spots just so I could see what they look like, and just curious to see how it dries and what sort of effect I get. So I'll have a few pictures of that towards the end, which isn't too far away. And there's a nice little action shot of me taking some still pictures, which you're just about to see after this little piece of video. And so that's pretty much it. There's still a few things that need to be done, but it's as much as I can do right now, because I actually need to have both of the tanks finished to take the next step, which will be to do the following. So I want to finalize the base with the tanks in situ, which means I need to finish both the tanks, need to get them on the dio base, and I need to drill for where the little bolts are, because I like to screw them down so you can really push them into the ground. Once I've got that sorted out, there'll be a thin layer of mud put in where the tank tracks are, in particular where the tanks are sitting, so when I screw them down onto the base, or bolt them down onto the base, the mud will squish out, hopefully through the tracks and out the sides, and look quite realistic. Once that's done, then I need to just pay some close attention to where I want the water and ice effects to make sure that's all looking good, and that'll include some ice that's formed on the tanks overnight, etc. And then once all that's done, then there'll just be a very light dusting of snow to finish it all off. So the next thing you see will be the tanks, the part 2 build of the pimped Panther. Then we can compare the unprimed out of the box with the unprimed pimped version. Then it'll be possible for me to do the bolts, screw them down and get the positioning right. Then I can paint them and we'll be very close to being finished. So I think that's about it. And in fact, that is it. So thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it as always. Like if you liked, subscribe if you want to keep updated with the new videos as they come out. And as I always say, really look forward to your comments. So comment if you've got anything to comment about, and I will always reply. Otherwise, I think I've got one more video in me just before Christmas, so I'll come back in that little Christmas special, as I have done for the last couple of years, to wish you Happy Christmas. So take care, everyone, and I'll catch you on the next video. Click on the link to check out Steve's channel and his great Panther build.